Cher here. So, I got bored. And usually what happens when I get bored is I start creating random videos of things that I know most people who watch my channel don't usually like watching. So, if you guys read the title of this video and clicked on it thinking it was gonna be something else, or maybe you just clicked on it because you saw it's a new video from me and then you just realize, oh, it's not Love Live or music related or anime related or anything like that, I apologize greatly. But this video is more about entertaining myself because I need new ideas to keep this channel fresh, or at least try to. So I kinda stole this idea. Well, it's not really steal because I'm about to give credit for a second. I've been watching a couple of videos of people on the booktube space talking about their favorite and not favorite tropes of certain genres of books. And for this one, I thought I'll do the ones on romance because, believe it or not, romance is one of my favorite genres of pretty much anything. But the reason why I don't really talk about it as often is because, first of all, I know a lot of people find romance very boring or very tedious, like stuff to get to, like it's been overdone in a lot of media, so I completely understand that. Romance is very hard to get right because it's very easy to write about, but it's almost impossible to make one that pretty much appeals to the vast general audience, if you know what I'm saying. So, like I said, I understand if this is not your favorite thing in the world. Like, I'm not gonna beat you over the head. Yeah, so I was looking at those videos, and a couple of YouTubers were doing tier lists on the Tiermaker site about, like, classic romance novel tropes that you might find in a book. And I thought, hey, I've read a lot of romance books in my life. Maybe I could put in my 2 cents. It doesn't have to be the 2 cents that you agree with, but it's my 2 cents nonetheless. So, quick disclaimer before I get into this. One, I greatly apologize if my voice all of a sudden gets weird throughout the video. I've been suffering with a pretty bad cough for the past, week and a half. It's kind of going away. Like, last week I was a lot worse, but I've been definitely getting better, and that's why in some past videos that I posted, I sounded very weird. I was getting over that weird throat thing, but it's not completely gone away, so if you see any weird edits, that's probably because I was coughing up a storm, which is not fun, and I know how long this video is going to take, so I know that's going to happen. Just take note into that. Secondly, I know my hair is bad, so I am sorry about that, but I am just too lazy to fix it. Like I said, I was bored, and this video was pretty much a last-minute thing. So with that in mind, let's get to it. So I found this tier list created by, I think the YouTuber's name is Sarah Coroli. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. So, if you want to make this tier list for yourself, I'll show you the complete tier list once I'm done with basically going it over. I'm still not good at, the, recording one video while I'm recording myself thing. So I'll show you the finished product once we're at the end of the video. And if you want to do the tier list yourself, if you're a fan of romance novels like I am, you can find the Tiermaker link in the description box below. I'll credit the original maker as well, so you can find it easier. But with that said, let's hop right to it. So the very first trope that's on the list is teacher-student. Now, in the romance novel sphere of things, I know what you guys are thinking, and like I said, in the usual adult romance novel sphere, no. The teacher-student relationship is not usually between a literal child and an actual teacher because that is straight up illegal and disgusting. The teacher-student relationship is more of usually a master's degree student or a undergrad college student versus professor. Now, this trope is kind of iffy, and I really don't like the power dynamic thing between the two, because one, like, your teacher is almost kind of like your superior in your getting your education sort of thing. So yes, even though you're both adults and it's not illegal per se, at least done in the correct circumstances. Like, if you're dating your student because you're bribing them, yes, that's illegal and absolutely disgusting. But if it's just a general thing that, like, suddenly happens, I wouldn't mind it as much. But then I started thinking, like, first of all, master's degree is completely, totally fine because you're, like, in your mid-20s. And what if your professor is, like, early 30s, like, mid-30s or something? Like, I wouldn't mind it as much. And also, like, if you're getting your undergrad, and it's like, what if you're doing the night school thing, and they're, like, you're, like, an older adult who's getting their, like, undergrad degree, like, later on in life, and then professor's, like, about same age as you, that's completely fine. But, like, 19, 20-year-old student versus a professor in their 30s, and all of a sudden they fall in love. Again, not illegal, but it's super creepy. And, I mean, first of all, I don't know many, novels out there in the romance genre that actually, do make this, like, romantic, per se. Like, I've read novels where it's like, oh, school romance if it's teacher and teacher, or like teacher and librarian, or like teacher and administrative person or something like that. That's completely fine because they're both like around the same age, consenting adults. But the teacher-student thing, I don't know, like, I know it's fantasy sort of thing, so they're not going to do anything dangerous, but like, I don't really vibe with it. Like, unless it's under very specific circumstances, as I mentioned earlier with the whole master's degree, or if the students teacher are like closer in age in the college setting, which is, again, completely fine. So I'm struggling. Oh, I forgot about the tiers. Sorry. So there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 tiers to the list. So from the top to the bottom, the very top one is I will read any book with this trope, which pretty much is obvious. And the second tier is I usually enjoy it, which means, yeah, I like it in passing. Like, if it's really good enough, like, usually it never disappoints. The third one is not my fave, but also not my least fave, which means, yeah, I'll read it from time to time, but it kind of depends on the book. Fourth tier is doesn't hit unless done right, which means, like, this genre is a hit or miss thing, which in very rare cases it can work, but most of the other time it just doesn't. So you either avoid it a lot unless you really have to. The fifth tier is not a vibe/fan, which is kind of obvious. It's like, you don't hate the trope, but at the same time, like, you avoid it pretty much, like, as much as possible, but you don't have a visceral hatred towards it. Then the sixth tier is get rid of it, which basically means you absolutely hate this trope and you wish if the trope didn't exist, your life would be a million times better. And then the last one is haven't read, which is the neutral, like, oh, I don't really have an opinion about the genre because I never really read, like, romances regarding this trope, or maybe you did, but you really just don't have an opinion on it because you pretty much don't care. Okay, going back to the teacher-student thing, now that the tiers are out of the way, again, I'm sorry for not mentioning that earlier, I'm gonna put it in the not a fan /vibe tier because, as I mentioned earlier, even though, like, there's probably a novel out there that exists in which the teacher-student relationship can work, but in most cases, it's excuse me, it's just not my cup of tea. So the second trope we have is fake dating. I'm gonna put this in the, I'm stuck between I usually enjoy it and not my fave, but also not my least fave, because fake dating is all a matter of circumstance and who your characters are. Because if your characters are pretty good and if the scenario is actually pretty fun, then the fake dating trope can work. But if your characters are like super blah, or if the situation of why they're fake dating is like very trivial and annoying, then yeah, it's gonna be a very bad read. So I don't think I've ever read a fake dating romance that annoyed me per se. Maybe got bored of it sometimes, but like not really annoyed. So I'm just gonna man, oh god, I'm probably gonna be thinking about this for the next 5 minutes. I'm gonna put it in the I usually enjoy it. Because like I said, a lot of fake dating books that I did read, they ended up being actually good. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna put it in the not my fave, but not my least fave. Because like I said, a couple of fake dating romances I have read were actually really decent. But then there are also a lot of ones where I did drop. But again, it's not one of those tropes that is gonna steer me away from reading the book. So the next one we have is sports romance. I don't know if I count that as a trope per se, but more of a subgenre. Because all it consists of is it's a romance between a normal person and an athlete. It could either be the guy athlete or female athlete with a fan, or like it's just an average person. It's kind of a sub-genre thing of celebrity romance novels where it's basically famous person dates normal person or another celebrity or whatever like that. So I would not count that as a trope per se. And I have read sports romances that were actually okay. Like, so most of the time, the weird thing is that the sport is not the most important part of the romance. Like I said, the sport is like someone's occupation. So it's not, or maybe like someone's like hobby. So it's not really the main focus of the story anyway. Like I said, it all depends on like the characters and the situation. Like similar with the fake dating thing. So I'm gonna put it in the not my fave, but also not my least fave, because this genre is kind of like very fickle, like in regards to that. Because if you have all the right stuff in the genre, then you have a good book. But if it does like some things wrong, then it might not be an enjoyable experience. Forced proximity. That's an interesting one because I don't think that's like a main trope of romance. Like I would call it more of a sub-trope. It's like a trope within a trope. Like when I think of forced proximity, I think of like enemies to lovers books, or like a workplace romance where it's like, oh, you're forced to see this person pretty much every day or every moment. So like it doesn't usually take up the entire book, but it's sort of the catalyst to how a romance is. And I don't hate it. Like, but it's not really the first thing like people think of when they think of like romance tropes. So I think it's kind of weird that it's on here. But I'm just gonna say I usually enjoy it because I don't think I've ever read anything with the forced proximity in it that I didn't like. Or at least it's not the thing that will turn me off from a book, which is what I'm trying to say. Bad boy, good girl. Oh boy, I have some words to say about this. This is actually the first one that's gonna go in the doesn't hit unless done right category. In my mind, when I think of bad boy, good girl, I think of it as, picture it. Good girl means like, oh, she's studious. She does really well at her job. Or she's basically a girl who's like, her last focus in life is her love life. Like, she doesn't really care, but not like that she cares that much, is what I mean. Like, she's just trying to live her life. Like, she's trying to, work the best she can, when all of a sudden, her life changes when this mysterious stranger shows up. And when people usually say bad boy in romance terms, he's not exactly bad. He's an outcast, or he's a rebel, or he's like not a criminal per se, but he's like, he has like a mysterious aura around him, but at least he has morals. However, in more romance novels recently, I've noticed that the bad boy trope has been taken a lot more literally, meaning that bad boy actually means that the guy either is a total asshat, or like for literally no reason other than he thinks it's funny, or B, the guy is straight up abusive, which I don't know who ever thought that was a good idea to write as a character. Like, you literally have this one character that exists to be the bane of this girl's existence, and then you expect her to fall in love with him later. Like, I think bad boy, good girl trope only depends on the author's interpretation. So, like, I like a bad boy, good girl romance if done, like, if the guy is actually, like, yeah, he has, like, questionable decisions, but his heart is usually in the right place, and he doesn't want to, intentionally hurt anyone, basically. Like, I like characters like that. Not characters who are literally like, I hate you, but I expect you to fall in love with me later. That's just, no. So, yeah, I'm putting it at that. Mafia romance, definitely going in the get rid of it category. Now, on paper, mafia romance, like, to me, is basically someone falls in love with a person who's in the mafia. And you would think that that person they would end up falling in love with is not really a bad person, but they're just stuck in there by circumstance. And usually, for people who do read good mafia romances, that's usually the case. Like, the guy's just there by circumstance. Like, sort of like in the bad boy, good girl trope. Like, the bad boy is just, like, falling on some hard times and stuff like that. That would be a lot more understandable. But unfortunately, a lot of mafia romances, like, it's usually the male lead. He's an abusive dickwad who, like, and there's a lot of, like, violence, gore for no reason other than to add, like, thriller stuff, I guess. Oh, and sometimes there's rape. And very little sometimes, a lot of rape. And I just don't like that. Like, you could set that on fire. Like, I would be perfectly fine if this genre basically did not exist. Next trope we have is grumpy/sunshine. This is not exactly like the bad boy, good girl trope. It's like an offset of that. It's mostly like the main, like, there's one character who's like a happy-go-lucky person who sees the good in everything, and then there's like their love interest who's kind of like this pessimistic, they've had some troubles in their life, so, like, not everything, or they don't see everything that's good, they see that everything's about to get them. This can work if the personalities of the characters are actually done right. Because this can go sour pretty quickly if, one, your grumpy character is an absolute asshole whose main purpose in life is to just annoy the sunshine character, or the sunshine character could be childish, immature, and annoying. I've actually read grumpy sunshine romances that went both ways. There have been romances that in this trope that are good if the characters are actually made to be like real people, but then, like, I've also read some that were boring and annoying because they're very comedically tropey, which I would prefer not to be reading. So I'm gonna put this in the doesn't hit unless done right, because I've literally had it both ways to the point that it's not even funny anymore. The next trope that we have is bodyguard romance. I feel like I should have read more of these than I actually have. Bodyguard romance is sort of like a subgenre where it's like, oh, you have a protector and the protectee. So you can mix in basically a lot of things into bodyguard romance. Maybe like enemies to lovers. Maybe the bodyguard is like completely annoyed at the fact that their protectee does things that they don't like, or vice versa, the other way around. It also could be one of those cases like love at first sight, age gap stuff. Maybe it's a friend who ends up being the bodyguard to protect their friend, stuff like that. Secret relationship, stuff like that. It could literally mean anything. So, bodyguard romance is, weird because the bodyguard versus protectee romance thing, I don't mind. It's the inner chemistry workings that could make or break it. So, I'm just gonna put this in, not my fave, but also not my least fave either. Because, like I said, it could be either pretty enjoyable or just a little bit tedious. Right person, wrong time. Honestly, I have not read a lot of these, so I had to, like, look it up on Goodreads. I'm like, what does this genre mean? Fortunately, I did read some books that fit in this category, while at the same time I'm like, did that really count? Which is very strange because, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with right person, wrong time. Because when I think of right person, wrong time, it means like, oh, it's like Romeo and Juliet is the most common thing, like, I can think of. Because you have, like, star-crossed lovers who, like, they're so in love with each other at first sight, but because of their bickering families, they can't be together. Like, that's what I think about. But this also could apply to, like, person meets other person, but it turns out that other person is taken already. So this could lead to possible cheating. Maybe time passes and then the other person is not taken anymore or something like that. It can literally apply to a lot of things, like either love that's not meant to be, or like the time is just not right, literally. So, I think this trope can work. So I'm gonna put it in not my fave, but also not my least fave, because again, it depends on the story, and it depends on the situation. Like, some situations can't, like, I don't know if the trope is on here or not, but maybe I'll get to it when I get to it. Like, I hate books that involve cheating. Not only just that, but like, the cheating party doesn't get their comeuppance. It's like, oh yeah, I cheated once, but like, or it could be like they've been cheating throughout the whole story, and all of a sudden, like, at the end, they're just like, oh, but we're gonna stay together because we love each other so much. Then why'd you cheat in the first place? So, yeah, that part I don't like. But also, like I said, the Romeo and Juliet thing could also be a possibility. So, it depends on your definition, really. The only one bed trope. Wait, did I ever... Maybe this happens in The People We Meet on Vacation, but I just don't remember. But usually the only one bed trope happens a lot in, like, TV shows, movies, and anime. Like, I remember watching Free, and that anime had the only one bed trope, but that was only made for comedic purposes. I don't really recall reading this a lot in romance novels, unless it's like one of those, like, trapped in a snowstorm, like, type romances where the book is, like, only 150 pages long. Yeah, I guess this is a true definition of a trope, but it's like it only happens for, like, maybe... But most of the time it, like, happens for, like, one scene. And it only works if it's, like, within a trope. So it's like, oh, maybe, like, childhood friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, or something like that. So I don't know if I count it, like, as like a full, like, full on, it affects the whole story trope, because normally it doesn't. It's just one scene. So, I'm gonna put it And not my fave, but also not my least fave. Actually no, I'm gonna put it in haven't read because I really don't recall how many books I've read in which this happened. So I wouldn't exactly give a proper representation of my thoughts on that. The next we have Love at First Sight. Okay, so people have a lot of definitions for what love at first sight means. Some people think it means insta-love, which I don't think I would categorize as that, because to me, insta-love is those novellas for 90 pages in the span of a day. The person and the love interest meet and they decide that after a couple of hours they should either start going full-fledged boyfriend and girlfriend or even get married in some cases. No, that's I don't like that trope. And actually, I do think that's in here somewhere, but I'm gonna get to that when I get to that. But no, when I think of love at first sight, I think of meet cute instances where it's main character meets stranger somewhere at a party or out on the street. And it's in that moment where they kind of realize that this is the main couple that we're going to be rooting for later on. So I do think that is cute. And it's usually done in a not creepy sense either, because the person who ends up seeing the other person either acts awkward just because they are nervous and stuff. They're not really stalkery. And it's like I said, it's a meet cute, kismet sort of thing. So, I want to put that in. Okay, I think I'm going to put this in. I will read this in any book with this trope because it literally in almost every romance novel that involved the meeting a person by destiny thing, I've always read the whole thing or enjoyed it. So yeah, it doesn't really affect me that much. In fact, I can envision the little movie in my head on how it's going on, and I'm this is nice. I'm reading on the beach chair at the pool, just enjoying myself. So yeah, that's gonna be the first I will read any book with this trope because it's sort of a given. So love triangle. I'm going to put this in actually the get rid of it, because every single time I read the synopsis of a new book that I think I'm interested in reading, and it involves the two possible love interest thing, I literally put it back, because every single time I've either watched a movie or read a book that involves a love triangle, the love triangle 99% of the time does it absolutely wrong. It makes it super long, super tedious, and it makes it, especially in harem, reverse harem situations, it makes the main character very flat in personality. It's are you even interested in any of these? You're so boring. It's they want to put the reader inside of the personality of the character instead, so the reader gets to choose. No one wants that. It's boring. They only want that if it's a video game and they actually seek it out themselves. They don't want to read or watch a fictional property in which it's a character who has to make the choice, but they end up not making a choice. It's like I said, it's tedious and boring. Okay, so the next one we have is single parent. I do read some of these, but I just don't know why I don't read it more often than I should. Because there's nothing wrong usually with a single parent trope. It's just a character. Sometimes you're gonna have characters that are they either had a previous relationship with a child involved, and either it just didn't work out or tragic circumstances happened. I guess the only thing that could make or break a single parent story is not really the character, the single parent character themselves, but the child. Because the child plays a crucial role in which does the couple get together. Because the outside party has to like the child too. And And especially for the reader, the child has to be likable. And when I think of single parent, I also think of situations in which maybe it's both parents are dead and like the older sibling has to take care of the younger siblings. That is also a thing that happens. I remember, I forgot what the book was called because I completely blocked it out of my memory. There was this one romance that I read. I think it takes place on like a horse ranch where it's an older sister trying to like make ends meet, and she has to, and because both parents I think passed away tragically somehow, or like I don't know if the parents abandoned them, I don't remember, but so she now has to raise her autistic younger brother. And the moment I read that in the synopsis, I was like, oh great, I know exactly where this shit is going. And lo and behold, I got exactly what I thought, and I hated every single second of it. Why? Because usually in novels like these, whenever they mention an autistic child character in a way, they sort of think it's the same thing as your child being or the child character being an extremely fucking annoying brat. And literally, like, the purpose of this autistic character was to throw tantrums literally every chapter. And as an autistic person myself, it actually offended me on a vaster scale than you think. Because even with lower functioning autistic children, they do not tantrum as much as this author thought they did. And I was just like, I don't know why I even decided to read the whole thing, because I hated that child character throughout the entire book. And I was just like, I usually never think this. And I do not want to wish this literally on anyone. But because it's a fictional character, I was literally like, can a horse just kick this child in the head and it kills the child? Because I do not want to see this child character in the rest of the book ever. And that is the only time I will say that. Because that book really annoyed me that much. But then other times when I've read single parent books, the children were actually pretty decent. They were actually fine. I'm gonna go with I usually enjoy it. Because like I said, it's a situational thing. But the majority of the time, I actually find that the kids in the situation, or especially the parents themselves, are actually okay. So, yeah. That's how I'm gonna leave it. I know after I just ranted for like 5 minutes. The next trope we have is friends to enemies to lovers. So this is different from friends to lovers and enemies to lovers because it's actually more complex in how the story is written. So basically it's just how it is. Like two characters start out as like friends, companions, whatever. Something happens, like a misunderstanding or like a tragedy that causes the friends to split apart, either in a like a we won't talk to each other kind of way, or a I really despise this person kind of way. It could go either both ways. So time passes and bottle up feelings all of a sudden when they meet again, like explode in a concoctionist mess. And in a circumstance when this is where forced proximity comes in, where they're now required to be together, that when they finally talk out their feelings and they realize they missed each other, and not only that they'll fall in love at some point. I like the idea of this, and I think I've read one or two novels in which this happened. Like I said, I think this is actually like the plot of People We Meet on Vacation, and I really enjoyed that book. But I don't think a lot of novels I've read actually incorporated this, which I wish I did. I wish I did read more of this, actually, because it sounds very interesting in hindsight, and usually the characters are complex enough that they can go through this plot line without anything tedious happening. But for the case of this, because I haven't read it that much, I'm gonna put it in the haven't read section. Maybe this will change in the future. I hope it changes in the future, actually, because I kind of want to get into it. Anyway, the next one we have is Age Gap. Now, this is this is an immediate doesn't hit unless done right, because it depends, again, on the circumstance and the age gap. So if we're talking about, like, person in, like, their mid-20s dating a person in their mid-30s, it's not illegal. It's kind of weird, but I think it's okay. If it was, like, person in their 30s dating someone in their 40s, I think that's okay. But if we're talking about, like, person in their 20s meets someone in their 50s, I think that's very weird, because that's like me if all of a sudden I wanted to date my dad. Like, I just can't do it. That's, like, why would you date someone who could be your father? This cough is gonna kill me. So, like I said, as long as the power dynamic is not, like, very off balance, I think this could work. But the couple, or at least the characters, have to be in a similar, like, mental age mindset in order to do so. Hence why I said it doesn't hit unless this writer can do it correctly. Accidental pregnancy. Get rid of it. I know people don't mind if, like, the female lead gets pregnant at some point. But me, I actually do care. Because I don't see the point of a woman getting pregnant out of wedlock, because it makes it seem like, oh, this is the only way that her life gets ruined unless she has the man to, like, help her and stuff like that. I really don't like that circumstance. Like, I don't like it in fiction. I don't like it in real life, because in fiction it makes it sound like, oh, the most natural way a couple can get together is if they're having a baby. No. In real life, that actually makes things a million times worse. Like, most couples who have like one night stands, but then the woman ends up getting pregnant, they actually end up fucking hating each other. So I don't want to be reading that in a book. So I tend to avoid it at all costs. Next one, bully romance. Also get rid of that shit. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to bring together a person who got bullied in, like, their past, most likely in school, and the person who tormented them? Like, this abusive type of relationship is sexy to you people? Am I going insane? Like, am I abnormal in thinking that there is something wrong with this dynamic? Because if this were a real life scenario, the last person I would want to be with was the person who in 9th grade sexually assaulted me on the school bus, which prevented me from going on a school bus ever again. I am not joking. This is a real story that happened. So I avoid these books because I don't want to relive my trauma. Okay, so the next trope we have is brother's best friend. I feel like this is more of like an ASMR roleplay audio thing. Like, I have read books in which this happens, but I think it's more of the best friend's sibling romance thing rather than your sibling's best friend. So I think I'm gonna put this in haven't read. Like, I probably read books in which it happened and I didn't mind. It's mostly like young adult romances in which it happens, not really for adults. But I really haven't read enough like adult romance in which I can make that conclusion. So next one is friends with benefits to lovers. Yeah, not a vibe category it goes. Like, I can imagine like this being someone's fantasy. It's like, oh, you meet someone and like the only reason why you're friends is that you give good sex and all. And after having sex so many times, like, I can understand, like, how love can blossom from that. But in reality, that just really doesn't work. At least for me, it doesn't. Because usually, you have sex with people who you usually don't want to communicate with. Like, I don't hate it. I don't hate the idea. Because maybe there's a book out there that could work. But due to, like, personal feelings I have about this, I just, try to stay away. Workplace romance. I think I'm also gonna put this in doesn't hit unless done right, because there are two kinds of workplace romances. One, if the couple are actually made of coworkers who are on the same, like, grade level or, like, promotion level as each other, which is workplace romances I actually don't mind reading because at least their power dynamic is, like, the similar to each other because they work in the same, like, not only department, but, like, they understand, like, they're in, like, they work or share the same workload. That's what I mean to say. But then there's the other workplace romance where it's, like, boss of a company who falls in love with, like, grunt of the grunt company work. I usually don't like those because, again, the power dynamic is very awkward to me because it's like, you're the boss and you're taking advantage of this lower paid employee for I don't know what benefit. Like I said, I think it depends, like I said, on the situation and if the coworkers like each other, that the workplace romance could work. But most of the time, it kind of just doesn't. Enemies to lovers. Again, like with most things, it's a situational thing. If the two, like, leads really hate each other, why do you want them to get together? But if it's just, like, petty fighting or rivals, maybe more like rivals to lovers, I can get, because at least rivals sort of have a mutual respect. I'm gonna put this in the doesn't hit unless done right, because, like I said, it has to depend on the character dynamic. Strangers to lovers. I think that's literally, well, not literally, but, like, almost every romance novel, like, I'm assuming, like, the two characters most of the time are people who haven't met before. So, unless it's, like, friends to lovers, then that's obvious. But, like, usually in a book, it's two people who haven't met, so I'm just gonna put this in I will read, like, any book with this trope, because that's the majority of books that I read. Like, that's pretty much the majority of, like, any romance whatsoever. Childhood friends to lovers. I will also read any book with this trope. Like, I just like the dynamic of, like, people who have known each other like, their entire lives. And it's like, you know each other pretty well, and you pretty much know what your likes and dislikes are. So how you implement that into, like, the romance novel setting is, like, really adorable to me. Like, I like reading in books, I like watching it in movies, I like watching anime with this in it. So it was a given, without a doubt. Okay, the next one is Slow Burn. I'm assuming this is slow process of falling in love, which is, like, majority of romance novels anyway. I guess it's in comparison to Insta Love, which I will get to in a sec. So, yeah, I'm gonna put that in I will always read because I like couples getting to know each other first before diving into the relationship thing. Okay, so this next one was what I was talking about earlier with the celebrity romance trope. It's titled One of Us is Famous, but it basically means a celebrity romance. I put this in the I usually enjoy it category. I don't know what it is, but I like I know most people don't like the whole celebrity falls in love with fan or normal person thing because of what's going on right now, especially with K-pop stans. Like, I get it. I talk to K-pop stans every day. I know how these people are. So I completely get it. But in a fantasy, like, reading fanficky, like, or romance stuff kind of way, like, it kind of helps you escape a little bit. And it kind of gives, and the what if is kind of fun. So, yeah, like, if I ever, like, find a celebrity and fan romance, I will pick it up. There will be cases in which, like, the couple doesn't fit right, especially more on the celebrity side, because the celebrity can be a total dick. So, yeah, that's when I would drop it, but usually that's not the case. Like, I've read a lot of celebrity romances recently in which the couple dynamic is pretty good. So, the next, trope that we have is titled I Hate Everyone in the World But You. This doesn't feel like an adult romance trope, but more of a, like, if this was a young adult romance trope, I would 100% get it. because I have read novels like that, but it's less very romancy and more about the main character going through a like traumatic experience or like a mental health thing, which if done right is really good, which is why I'm gonna put it in the doesn't hit unless done right category. Because if your main character is literally that not likable, no one's gonna read the book. And I've had it happen where I had to drop the book because the main character was just that annoying. And it very easily can happen. Okay, next trope is right person, not enough time. So the very first thing I think of when I hear something like that was The Fault in Our Stars. Like, you know, I think most of you know what The Fault in Our Stars is. I did not like The Fault in Our Stars, but that's just because I did not like the main character. But, I don't think I've ever read anything like after that, unless it was by coincidence. But, I'm just gonna put this in haven't read because literally I haven't read anything like that since The Fault in Our Stars. And Fault in Our Stars was like back when I was in middle school, junior high. So it's been a very long time. So maybe when I pick some more books up like that again, then yes. Okay, so we got normal friends to lovers next. And yeah, I'm gonna put this in. I will read any book with this trope. Because it's like how I said with childhood friends to lovers, that the same thing applies to here. It's like I like how the friends who basically known each other for a few years, like it's like you basically know how you guys live already. I would like to see that develop. It's actually really nice. All right, now that we got the reverse, which is a good boy, bad girl. Okay, I really have to think this is a sexism thing because usually good boy, bad girl, it's not as polarizingly divided as bad boy, good girl is in terms of how far the author will go to writing these types of characters. Because for good boy, bad girl, it's most of the time like, oh, the good boy's like very studious, he never gets in trouble, he never goes to the principal's office, like gets yelled at or anything like that. And then the bad girl is it's not outcast type, but it's like rebellious, like in the more of the like, oh, my parents are like God-fearing churchgoers, and I basically do everything to rebel against that. Like, they're not the kind of person, unless it's like a thriller where the girl is like committing crimes and stuff like that, or actually a really bad person. That's not usually how it goes. So for this case, I'm gonna put this in the do I put it in I usually enjoy it, or not my fave, but also not my least fave? For a safe bet, I'm gonna put this in the I usually enjoy it category, because I don't think I ever found a book that I found too boring from this aspect. Like, I've read a good few, and I don't think I've had a bad experience, which is what I'm saying. Okay, next is finally Insta-Love, and I told you how much I don't like it, so obviously this is going in the get rid of it category. There is a reason why Disney movies work better at this aspect than romance novels can, because for Disney movies, you have about a good hour and a half to explain why this couple can work. While in Insta-Love novels, it's like 90 to 120 pages. Or if it's a longer book, the Insta-Love basically takes place within 1 day to 1 week. Like, look, I get it. It's all fantasy and stuff like that. But usually Insta-Love romances take place in the real world. So like in a realistic fiction setting, not much a fantasy world setting, like medieval England with dragons and stuff like that. So not like that. So if so how realistic is it that a couple wants to get married within a week, unless this is like 1950s America when fresh out of high school you're expected to get married like that? And yes, that is a real thing. So in more realistic, like modern day terms, yeah, no, I'm not interested in like a couple saying that they want to get married after a week of knowing each other. I mean, most of the time it's not like that. It's like, oh, I automatically want to be boyfriend, girlfriend. That's not realistic either. I just don't care enough. So the next one we have is the billionaire trope. I already mentioned this in the workplace romance. I'm gonna put this in the, not the get rid of it per se, but in the not a vibe / fan of it. As I mentioned earlier, I really don't like it's the usually power dynamic of grunt work employee versus the billionaire CEO of the company. But it's not always like that. It usually is. It's not always like that. It's sometimes the heiress or the heir to a business company like Fortune versus normal person or middle class person, poor person. But again, the power dynamic is very weird, and it's usually the rich person who has all the control, which I really don't like. Like, it's kind of traumatic in a way, because it's like you're taking advantage of this person because you have money. It just doesn't sit right. The next thing we have is royalty. Now, you would think that after what I said about the billionaire thing and the celebrity thing, that this would apply to, like, a royal person versus the commoner, right? Well, I think with royalty romances, like, the royal person kind of has more at stake for what if something goes wrong. So usually the royal person versus the commoner in the romance aspect is actually a lot more wholesome than the billionaire CEO romance type thing. So, I'm gonna put this in the I usually enjoy it. It's not my favorite genre in the world, but whenever I do pick one up, I'm interested in it. The next one is secret relationship. I wouldn't call it an offset of fake dating, but like it's more of a Romeo and Juliet situation. Or probably even like, it kind of reminds me of like how in Gone Girl, like how, I'm forgetting his name, the guy's wife goes missing, but the truth of the matter was that he's been seeing this like younger woman. Like, it can apply both ways in good and bad. So I'm gonna put this in not a vibe / fan, mostly because it's just not really a book that interests me that much, or a trope that really interests me that much anyway. We already did forced proximity. I don't know why they add that twice. Second chance romances. This is automatically going to go in not my fave, but also not my least fave, because it could have easily gone in the doesn't hit right unless done right column very easily. Because there are a lot of second chance romances where it's like, yeah, I kind of see why you guys broke up in the first place. But I actually just finished a romance novel in which one of the characters goes through a second chance romance. And it's actually pretty wholesome when you think about it, especially because the partner that she broke up with got married and then had a kid. But then he ended up getting divorced from that relationship, and the kid is actually really wholesome and nice. It's called Summer at the Cape. I highly recommend that you read that book. It's actually a really nice summer read. So I don't want to spoil that for you, but if you want to read Summer at the Cape, I highly suggest you do. So with that said, yeah, it kind of depends on what mood I'm in, or what mood that the book gives off. So yeah, sure, let's go with that. Okay, I already did single parent. I already did why are there a couple of duplicates in here? That's really weird. Wait, I think I talked about best friend's brother when I talked about brother's best friend. Oh yeah, I put brother's best friend in here because I haven't read a lot in that scenario. But I did read more of best friend's brother, and I'm gonna put it in the not my fave, but also not my least fave. Because it depends on character and situation dynamics. Because if you have a situation where it's like star-crossed lovers or right person, wrong time scenario, then it could get very tedious. Even though it shouldn't be tedious, because it's like you're just dating someone, and I do understand the stakes of it, because if you break up with the brother and then like it could affect like your best friend somehow, I can kind of get it, but I don't think it affects me that much, and I don't really have to think hard about it. Okay, the next one we have, or the second to last one actually, because there is only one more original one, and then the last one is a repeat that I already explained. And the second to last one we have is marriage of convenience, which basically, for those who don't know, marriage of convenience is basically, oh, you have to marry this person because it'll help like save you from a detrimental situation. This mostly occurs in like historical romances. So like, you have a widowed woman with a child and you're poor, and back in those days, you really needed a husband to help support you and your family. So you have to marry someone with money to help with that situation. I don't mind these that much because usually the couple do end up like kind of falling in love with each other within the marriage because they're kind of decent with each other. Or when they're in the courting stage, like they're learning more about each other and stuff like that. It's not a terrible situation, but there are also some situations where like the guy she's about to marry is a complete dickwad. So it also can't not work sometimes, but I think I've seen more situations in which the marriage of convenience does work rather than doesn't work. So I'm going to put this in not my fave, but also not my least fave. Like, it's not really the first thing I would pick up, but it's also like not something I would turn away that easily either. And the very last one, really, are people trying to piss me off today? Like, or this was probably something that they picked up for, that was following me from my anime comments or manga comments. Step brother romance. Like, automatically just get rid of it because I am not interested. I am not interested in how, like, two people can fall in love, but then all of a sudden the parents end up getting married instead, or how they meet because, like, the step-parents get together, and, like, all of a sudden, but you're falling in love with this guy, but unfortunately your family and stuff. Incest is still incest. I'm not interested whatsoever. Okay, so that's pretty much the whole entire tier list. Like I said, there are a couple of duplicates in there, so to spare time, I'm not talking about those again. So here right in front of you is the full tier list chart that I have. So, yeah, there's that. And of course, I will post this on my community post later for a better full view. So as I stated earlier, I put in the Tiermaker list link in the description of this video, and I've also credited the original Tiermaker. So if you guys are interested in making this tier list yourself, you can go ahead to the description box and click the link. And with that being said, if you also have any comments as to why I put these tropes the way I put them, you can also hit me up in the comments down below and share your opinions there. And if you guys like this video, you can hit me up in the like button too. I'm Cait, and it's been real. Ciao!